This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Hello and welcome to BCIT's For the Record. I'm your host, Emma Bolsner. It might be surprising to know that there is only one photography gallery in all of Vancouver. As someone who has grown up here all my life, I wanted to visit and find out more. So I went to Gallery 881, which is located on 881 East Hastings. Last month, I attended a tradeswoman exhibit there, led by Carly Steinman and Melissa Martin. The exhibit showcased raw portraits of tradeswomen here in BC through details of their hands and the labor they do on a daily basis. Gallery 881's space is modern but friendly and open at the same time. Just last week, the gallery had a new opening exhibit which features 80 images of wet plate photography, an early form of photography which has been having a revival. The opening night was bustling with sound. Now I am here with the owner of Gallery 881, John Goldsmith, who shares his passion for photography and what he hopes this city will gain from a gallery like his. John is also the creator of Printmaker Studio, which supports organizations and artists across Vancouver. Here is our conversation. Well, thank you so much, John, for coming on the show today.
I appreciate that, Emma. Thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit about Gallery 881.
So Gallery 881 is it's quite a lot of things, actually. First of all, it's a dedicated photography gallery, or as many people say, a lens-based gallery. So we do photographic exhibitions.
And what's the reaction been like from the Vancouver community since you've opened?
I think the community has embraced us. I think we've done a tremendous amount of artistic expression within the sort of 2.5 years that we've been in existence. Of course, not only do we do exhibitions, but we do artist talks and community events, and we try to bring in partners in the community every opportunity that we get. And I think by doing so, that really brings people together, which is, I think, one of the most important parts of having a gallery and showing art.
And there's sometimes a lack of that community gathering in Vancouver. Do you find that there's a greater appreciation for Vancouver's art scene over the last couple years?
I love that. I love that question, and I think it's complicated. I mean, on one hand, I know that since COVID, the neighborhood where many galleries and many artist studios are in, which is Strathcona, and where Gallery 881 exists, we've seen a 50%, that's 50% drop in foot traffic. So in many ways, I think we're hugely challenged to create that kind of engagement and get people out. On the other hand, last Thursday night, we did an opening. We don't usually do nighttime openings, but we decided to. And as it happened, there were many art events that night, including a major Lee Miller opening at the Polygon. We had a major opening for the Culture Crawl at the Pendulum Gallery, and I was somewhat concerned that people might not show up to this little corner of Strathcona. And in fact, we had well over 100 people showing up.
Well, it's a beautiful space when I was there, and it's just the right size too, because I know sometimes people don't like to walk through a whole museum or gallery in an evening, and I think that your size is perfect.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I think last week on Thursday, we had such engagement, and partly because of the artists and the art, but it is very cozy and it's very comfortable. I think it's not overwhelming. We also had a violinist playing during the opening, and it sort of became an impromptu concert. We put about 10 or 15 chairs out, and people really enjoyed a night not only of visual art but also the violinist as well.
Do you still take photographs yourself?
I do. I'm not as active as I once was. I think partly because I'm just investing so much time in both the gallery and also Printmaker Studio, which I haven't really said yet, but is the backbone of the gallery. And basically, Printmaker Studio is is a fine art printing and custom framer. We do a lot of the printing and framing for the gallery itself, but we also support other organizations and artists in the city who want to make art. In fact, we're currently sponsoring the Access Gallery fundraiser, which is happening this month and next month.
Oh, wow. So that really gives opportunities to up and coming artists and photographers.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, Gallery 881 and Printmaker Studio have a unique position in the community because we are combined in this way. We really support the ecosystem, the art ecosystem of Vancouver. We're in a position to do that in some ways that other galleries are not able to, because not only do we contribute to our own space, but we can contribute to artists and art spaces throughout the city and beyond.
Now, you mentioned to me that this is the only photography gallery in Vancouver. We do have the Polygon in North Van. Tell me a little bit about that. Why do you think that is?
Vancouver has a really rich history in photography. I mean, there's just so much going on with with photography. And why it's not represented better or more broadly in Vancouver? I think that's a really great question. I guess sometimes I wonder if the movement to, say, other art forms, visual arts like paintings, ceramics, media arts, is partly due to the way that we engage art, and also probably related to the marketing of art and the buying of art. But it's hard to know. When you look at the number of photographs that are made each day, not just in Vancouver, but around the world, and not even just photographs, but videos that are being uploaded constantly to Instagram or YouTube, you realize the power that these visual images have, and other art forms just don't have that reach. Yeah. So I guess I'm making a stand in Vancouver with the gallery and hoping that people continue to recognize photography as a really not only valid art form, but an important art form.
Do you think that photography has been taken for granted in more recent years, with anybody being able to just pull out their phone and take a picture?
It's one thing to take a picture, I'll say, and another thing to create a whole project. And I think this is another area where Gallery 881 tries to think about photography as a way of expressing ideas and expressing the art form, which is that we want you to, explore not just a single photo, which was so popular 75 years ago, let's say, and before, but explore ideas that are, when you construct a project like that, you need more than one picture or a ways of expressing an intention that you have as an artist. So I think when it comes to lots of people taking photos these days, which I don't want to downplay because I do think it's significant, as I said before, I love seeing artists come in and constructing whole projects based on ideas that they have, that you need multiple images to express, some kind of idea or thought that people have in their own brains that they want to share with others.
Yeah, and the exhibits you're choosing are quite interesting as well. You most recently had the BC Tradeswomen exhibit, which was really inspiring. And now you have the newest one, forgive me if I pronounce it incorrectly, Nepantla?
That's correct.
Nepantla.
Yeah.
How are you choosing these exhibits?
The way, basically we have an open submission policy. So on the website, anybody can, visit that page, and if they have some ideas, they can certainly send us a proposal. But I do invite artists. If somebody tells me that this artist is doing really great work, or if I come across their work, then I might reach out to them and propose something. So I would say submissions is a great way to explore, what we do and the programming that we do. But I love to see what people are doing, and I love getting invitations to look at people's work.
I guess my last question is, what do you wish to see more of from the Vancouver community? How can people support your gallery, and what do you hope from having this?
Well, we are about 2.5 years into this experiment of Gallery 881. And I think that, what I've learned is that galleries are a really important part of the fabric, the social fabric that we have. At a time when our own mayor wants to cut the arts by 12%, and when funding is significantly down, and the economy is challenged, and artists are struggling to maintain studios and their practices, I think it's really important for all of us to vote. I think it's important for all of us to support our galleries. I often say that the best and first thing that you can do is to visit. So I love when people just show up and come and see an exhibition, come talk to us, share their work. Beyond that, I think funding is important. And if people want to take the next step to making these spaces survive, then that means they need to contribute either as donations, or for us, that might mean printing and framing with us or buying art. But basically showing up, being a part of the community and sharing their ideas.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much, John, for speaking with me today.
You're very welcome, Emma. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You've been listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Emma Bolsner, for BCIT's The Crow.
Atlas is the latest interstellar object to visit our solar system. First detected in July 2025, it got its name in a rather straightforward way. 3, denoting that it is the third interstellar object ever detected, I for interstellar, and Atlas, named for the Chilean survey telescope that first observed it. However, the discourse surrounding the object has been anything but straightforward. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb has been in the spotlight since this interstellar comet was first discovered. He claims that 3I Atlas has features and anomalies that can only be explained by an intelligent origin, fueling public speculation and online conspiracy theories. To set the record straight, I spoke with McGill University Planetary and Earth Sciences professor Richard Leveille.
Obviously, there's been a lot of speculation surrounding 3I Atlas, and one particular Harvard scientist who seems to be at the heart of a lot of that speculation. People are saying like it could be aliens, it could be intelligently made. What do we know about it so far that indicates that that's not the case? Because for all intents and purposes, it seems that the vast broad majority of experts are saying that this is a natural object. It's just much older and much faster than stuff that we're used to. So I'd just like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, as you mentioned before, this is only the third known interstellar object that we've discovered for sure. And so, of course, immediately we're going to compare it to all the other comets we've studied, which for the most part, except for comet 2I Borisov, which is also an interstellar comet, we're going to be comparing it to objects in our solar system. And this object is from somewhere else outside our solar system, or another solar system, or another star system. And so the fact that there's differences with, say, typical comets, or the general comets that we see in our solar system, is not to be surprising, or shouldn't be surprising. Also, the comets in our solar system are quite different amongst themselves. And there's a famous quote, I think it's correctly quoted, to David Levy, that he says, comets are like cats. They all have tails, but they do exactly what they want. So they behave differently, just like cats do. They kind of do what they want. So many people are saying we shouldn't be surprised by what we find. And yes, there are some interesting discoveries that have been made. You mentioned the velocity or the speed of this object. There's the composition, which there's some peculiarities there. And we don't have all the answers. Well, first of all, we don't all have good data of all these things we've measured as this thing is zipping by and around the sun. So there are some interesting findings, but to go from that to it's an alien spaceship is quite a jump. And I mean, you can take anything that we find in space and sort of start with, is it aliens, or is it a spacecraft, or is it we see rocks on Mars that have interesting textures and shapes, and people say it's a doorknob, it's a frog, it's you name it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but upon more detailed scrutiny and scientific analysis, we find that that's generally not the case. And in the case of 3I, I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit off your original question, but
no, that's all right.
3I Atlas is a very interesting object. We're finding very interesting facts about it. We're making interesting observations, and most of these are either not that surprising or can be explained by specialists, and comet specialists are of course looking at this in great detail. And nothing is really so unexplainable that the only possible answer is that it's aliens or an alien spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's kind of my general answer to that. And then maybe if you want to get into some more specifics, we can. But yeah, like you say, most experts do not lay any claim whatsoever or any put any weight into this idea that it's an alien spacecraft. The person who does, the main person who does, has been doing this for a while with other objects, and has been doing the media circuit and or circus, and has published a book, and so maybe there's a bit of other motives involved here, and I won't get into sort of slinging the mud, but there are sort of some scientists who are claiming that he's not being very scientific, and he's discrediting other scientists, mm-hmm. or he's not taking into account other scientific observations, and criticizing his expertise, which I don't want to do because I'm not the world's expert mm-hmm. on comets, but neither is he, right? So it catches the media attention. He's in the New York Post every day, pretty much, mm-hmm, and mm-hmm. But not for the good reasons, not for the best of reasons. And the way I think of it, it's kind of like these conspiracy theories about whatever the Apollo moon landing or some stuff like that. If this thing is so peculiar and so special, you can guarantee that many people will be thinking this, right? And will be observing these things and coming to these conclusions, whereas it's just not the case. So.
Mm-hmm. Now that does kind of lead me into my next question. So you've been a scientist for a long time, and I've kind of done a little bit of reading. I've seen what you published before. Primarily has to do with Mars and Mars. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mars geology and potential biosignatures. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So in that regard, so obviously, I imagine alien life is kind of on your mind at times. Now, in certain instances, even in everyday life, but particularly it can be particularly dangerous with science in terms of like wanting something to be true. As a scientist, how do you yourself kind of, avoid those pitfalls of like looking for what you want to find as opposed to observing and having an objective outlook on your research and on what you're learning about?
Yeah, that's a very good question and an important one. All scientists that I know of are humans, and mm-hmm. for better or for worse, humans have some great qualities and sometimes some that aren't so great. And so we are biased, and we have egos and personalities and so on. So it is important to keep an open mind, and I think it's good to keep an open mind about what this object is. In the case of 3I Atlas, we're pretty convinced that it's a comet. It shows all the signs of being a comet. Is it a different kind of comet? Is it, does it have some kind of different history? There are estimates of, I've seen 7 to 11 billion years old. That's, mm-hmm. that's, potentially more than double the age of our solar system. So what has it gone through? Has it been to other star systems? Et cetera, et cetera. These are all great questions. So we should be open, but maintain our scientific, rigorous nature, and be careful with the observations and the facts, and to try to keep an open mind, but to take a scientific approach to explaining those. We can hypothesize that this is an alien spacecraft, and then try to, discredit that hypothesis by making further observations. And that's kind of what we're doing as a general scientific endeavor with this particular object. So indeed, I'm very interested in life, beyond Earth, life on Mars. I've worked with two of NASA's rovers on Mars, and although they're not directly searching for life, they're certainly asking questions about habitability and potential biosignatures and so on. And I would love to find a rock that contains some fossil microbe or something like that. But we need to show the evidence of that.
In terms of, like I said before, maybe a science enthusiast or just the average person that's trying to keep up with this kind of news, how do you, sift through the speculation and, sensationalizing that's kind of been going on with this particular object in the media? How does one navigate all of that?
Don't just rely on TikTok.
Good answer. Yeah.
Sometimes we have to, spend even, sort of doing your research on YouTube. That's challenging, right? Because once you click on, I clicked on a video one day, whatever it was suggested, and I clicked on it, and then I started getting a bunch more like that, right? Because then the algorithm sort of wakes up, and so it requires a little bit of effort. Unfortunately, it's hard to sort of not do anything and get the whole story. But it's consider your sources. Use different sources. There's a blog post by Jason Wright, who's a planetary scientist, astronomer. And he looked at all these claims by A.V. Loeb about 3I Atlas, and point by point, he sort of addressed them, and arriving at the conclusion that there's not a lot of weight to this idea that it's explained by an alien spacecraft. And so I think when someone goes through that with arguments and pointing to sources and other experts, I think that has a lot more weight than, say, a New York Post headline that says, Harvard astronomer believes this is an alien spacecraft. Yes, he's a Harvard astronomer. The guy's not an idiot, right? And we should listen to him, at least to see what he has to say, and maybe look at his, calculations and whatever he's proposing. But also knowing full well that the media also like to, have these kinds of headlines because, of course, it's all about clicks and eyes and so on.
Is there, like, how much do you think there is to learn about 3I Atlas, and how valuable is this research, even for your field, even though it's not directly related to interstellar bodies and comets and asteroids and whatnot?
Yeah, well, this is a big deal. This is a rare object, and it's a rare opportunity to study it. Scientists are continuing to make observations, and will continue to do so. And science is iterative. We find something, we ask another question, maybe we do a different kind of analysis, or how much of that we can do in this case is a little bit time sensitive, as this thing is going to start eventually sort of leaving us. But also the analysis of that data is not always instantaneous. Of course, there's headlines and people are proposing things. That's normal human. You want to understand what you're seeing, but sometimes things take time. Sometimes we reanalyze data. Sometimes we compare it to, we'll compare this one to number 4, number 5, and number 6 interstellar objects that we eventually come across or discover, and we'll start getting a picture of the diversity of these objects, what it says about where they're from, what it says about the diversity of planetary systems and other systems, how similar they are to our solar system. So I think lots will be learned, and lots, time takes time to do science, and the science doesn't stop. After a couple of months, when we've sort of looked at the preliminary data or done our first analyses, other people will, weigh in and compare and contrast, and this will continue as we discover other objects. So it's exciting that we have these opportunities. Many people think we will discover more and more interstellar objects as we try to find them and as technology gets better. So stay tuned for more.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Richard, thank you again.
And if it, on the odd chance that it is an alien spacecraft, I'm sure we'll figure that out. But be careful of initial sort of claims.
Yeah, I think personally, as a personal aside, I'm not going to believe it until it's on our front doorstep and it's knocking.
There you go.
I'll have to maintain my hopeful skepticism. So
call me if you get that that door knock.
Yeah. If they show up tonight, I'll let you know.
Great. Appreciate
awesome.
That.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard. Enjoy your day.
Okay.
Take care.
My pleasure. You too.
Bye-bye.
See you, Nate.
3I Atlas will be closest to Earth on December 19th and will pass Jupiter on its trajectory out of the solar system. This has been For the Record. I'm Nate Helms for BCIT's The Crow.